We are in Kaplankaya on the southwestern coast of Turkey for our annual gathering Harvest series. Here we bring together some of the greatest minds with expert speakers, renowned practitioners and talented performers, all aimed at opening our minds, creating curiosity and imagining a brightest future. I hope you like this interview. Hello, today my guest is Dennis Okwera. Dennis fled war-torn Uganda and sought asylum in the UK in 2010. There, he studied biochemistry and began modeling, subsequently working with notable fashion houses and appearing in editorial pieces such as Vogue magazine. Dennis founded the Lumule Foundation, which aims to empower the youth and women of his own town in Uganda by teaching skills and rebuilding schools devastated by the war. Today we'll discuss Dennis' life from Uganda to modeling in London and then helping back in Uganda. Hello, Dennis.
Hi.
Thank you so much
for
being here in this
you.
podcast room and in Harvest, where you're going to explain your story. What was the life in Uganda? What were your young years like during the war?
Oh, my young years. So basically, it was all about survival, and it was a tough one because you see things that you shouldn't see as a child. You know, the rebels would do the most awful stuff to people, and you see it all the time. If you know, they started off. So these rebels formed. They called themselves the Lord Resistance Army. It was led by Joseph Kony.
Yeah, the LRA.
LRA, yeah. So most people call it LRA, but it stands for the Lord Resistance Army. Lord Resistance Army.
Yeah.
They are our same tribe, because Uganda has many tribes, but they are Acholis as well. And they formed themselves. Their intention was to liberate the northern Ugandans from, the neglect that the current Ugandan president, he's been in power since 1986, I believe, Yoweri Museveni. They believed that he wasn't doing anything for northern Ugandans. He completely neglected northern Ugandans. So they wanted to liberate overthrow the government and then, make it more equal.
Okay.
But
so the intention was not
I
so
think
bad.
the intention wasn't bad, but it's just how they dealt with it. A few things, I think maybe some percentage of people maybe supported them when they were forming. They understood it a little bit, but then their actions in that process made people think that, wait, if this is how you're treating us, are you guys really the right people to be leading this country?
They were doing atrocities.
Yeah, there was a lot of atrocities. There was a lot of looting. There was a lot of rape and stuff. So people didn't want to join their ideology. And what happened was then they started forcing people to join their ideology. So they would come into communities and find men like, you're joining us. And if these men refuse, this is the most common one. And when you go to that part of the country, you see they would, if the men didn't want to join them, they would ask them short sleeve or long sleeve, and which means short sleeve, they would cut your arm off up here, and long sleeve, they'll cut just your wrist off because they're saying you're worthless for the war, for the journey they're trying to make. You're useless. So they leave you if you're lucky. Although some men obviously got shot, and then they'll take your eldest son or anyone from the age of 12 onward, as long as they feel like you can be fit enough to carry looted goods, and eventually you prove yourself and you get a gun. So you found these young boys had to do everything possible to try to prove themselves.
Okay.
So, and it was survival as well, I guess, for them. So you got young boys that did the most awful stuff to parents. Some of them were forced to do it to their parents who didn't want to join, you know. And this went on for years. Women got taken and raped, handed over to, this is your husband from now on. You take care of him, this and that. So you find these women just being handed out to men, young girls. This went on for years. And the other thing is there were landmines that they would put on farms or on your passage to the farms. But I remember the communities, like when you go and hide for the night, you would sleep in bushes, or like with young boys like me, we would walk for hours to go and sleep next to inside a church or next to an army barracks in the evenings. But when you do sleep in bushes and you wake up, next morning you go to the garden, to the field to try to help your parents. Or in my case, my grandma who was looking after me at the time, would take me back to the farm. But you're taught not to walk in the middle of the road, because they would dig those roads. They're not tarmac roads. So the roads were dug down and landmine put on it. So you walk in bushes on the side passage to go to the farm.
How did you manage to escape?
When the community felt safe, the teacher would ring the school bells.
Okay.
It was like, there's school today. And then you go. And if the rebels came during school time, teachers helped you run to hideout.
Okay.
Yeah. But on this occasion, they rang the bell. The rebels rang the bell.
Oh.
So
they tricked you. Okay.
Yeah, they tricked the community. The rebels rang the bell. Children ran to school. Not all of it, luckily. I was on my way. And then I asked my nan after, I said, how did you know? So my nan, she never normally follows me to school. But she followed me to school this day. And then she figured out something doesn't add up. So she's like, no, we're not going to school today. You come back. And then later on, we found out a lot of kids the kids that showed up to school got abducted.
Taken away.
Because the rebels rang the bell of the school. And that's when my grandma told my aunt, said, look, you got to take Dennis away from here, because, you know, he will get abducted soon. And then my aunt came and took me from the community. And so my aunt took me from the community. She brought me to Gulu. We stayed for Gulu for a number of years. And then when my dad made his way to the UK, he was doing work cash in hand here. So he would send money so we can move from Gulu. And Gulu was getting really worse this time. So my dad, when he came to London, he started working cash in hand. He would send money, and then he asked my aunt, he said, look, why don't you guys move to Ginger? Because there was one of my distant uncle that lived in Ginger and told my dad, said, Ginger is very safe. Maybe you should see if you can bring your aunt, your sister, and your Dennis and that here. And then my dad did that. So we moved to Ginger. We stayed in Ginger for a number of years while my dad does the paperwork to try to get us from there to the UK, which was tough. This went on for years. It was like, you know, we would go to British High Commission to get the visas to our dad, and they would decline it. And then eventually we got the visa and came to London. And then initially we came on a visitor's visa. So they would only give us visitor's visa because we hadn't seen our dad in a while. They said, we can give you visitor's visa, but we can't give you visas to remain in the UK. And then my dad said, let's take that. And then when you come here, I can reappeal, you know, because it was my aunt that was taking care of us. She had her own children as well. You know, it was tough for her as well. So we came
Your mom was in...
So at this point, I had lost contact with my mom
Okay.
completely. Yeah. That's why I was with my grandmother.
Okay.
So my mom really, like I've had no relationship with my mom
Okay.
because they broke up quite early. And before my dad brought us here, he brought my nan over first so she can be here and look after us because my dad worked cash in hand several times. He didn't have a status to work in the UK yet this time. So he would work cash in hand, several jobs. He was doing security. He was doing shop assistant to be able to even buy our tickets to come to the UK and pay for the visa. The visa was quite expensive. So we came to the UK on a visitor's visa because they won't give us visa. The UK don't actually have any asylum system in place for you to come to Uganda and seek asylum in the UK. They don't to this day.
Okay.
They don't. So we came on a visitor's visa, and then my dad said, look, where am I going to take my kids? My sister has had enough of looking after my children. You know, I've got no one else to send my kids back to. My grandmother is here. She can look after the boys while I work. We filed that and going to MPs, going to lawyers here. And then we just waited and waited. And we waited. It was almost a year or coming up to 2 years. We didn't know what was happening. We could get deported or we may stay. But at this point, schools won't take us on because you have to have a permanent address or status, I guess, to even go to school in the UK. So during the day, my dad goes, we would spend time just indoors. We didn't know the streets. We didn't know anything. So we would spend time inside. The people that lived around there kind of noticed that we don't go to school and stuff. So someone had a word with my dad, said, your boys should go to school, this and that. And, you know, you could get in trouble with it. So my dad obviously panicking. He's like, guys, you guys can't go out while I'm not home. You have to stay indoors.
Okay.
So we would stay indoors all the
day.
time. All
Okay.
day.
Wow.
Just looking out the window.
Fighting?
All day.
Fighting with your brother?
Fighting with my brother. I had enough of him. Yeah, so we would do that for months and months. And you think like, soon this will end. And then obviously my dad did start to take us out in the evening.
And how did you manage to get some medication in the end?
Friend that my nan was staying with, turned out it was my dad's girlfriend. They were dating. So, and my dad spoke to her, said, look, like this paperwork is taking ages. Can I use your address as a permanent address to register the kids for school?
Yeah.
And then she agreed. So we would come from Bethnal Green all the way to Greenwich to study. Yeah, so you get up early morning. I think it was 8:30 school, so we would get up at like 6, get on a bus. We had to get, I think, 3 buses to come and study in Greenwich because that's our permanent.
Did you enjoy finally being in a classroom?
Oh yeah. It was lovely. Being in classroom was lovely. Getting to know other kids now finally, you know. It was good. And I think my dad told the teachers, like, you know, my boys, they've been home for a while, you know, told them
you were a bit late.
Yeah. And they were quite helpful. They helped us settle in well. Obviously you do get odd thing from other kids saying remarks, you know, but that didn't faze us. That didn't faze, especially me anyway. It didn't bother me at all. You know, I'm in a country, safe. All I have to do is study and work hard, and, you know, I'm not going to get abducted. I'm not, you know, suddenly going to get, you know. So I even from that point, I felt like if that's all I have to do in life, just work hard, I could do that all day long.
Wow, well done.
Literally all day long. I remember me and my brother getting used to getting buses now. So I remember I got the bus and went with my brother, went to Central London. I think it was bus 25. We went to Central London, and then there was these 2 people that, hey, how are you? I was like, yeah, good. We were doing window shopping and like, hey, we're scouts for talent. We think you could be a good model. I was like, oh, okay. Said I need to talk to my dad. So
How old were you, sorry?
I was about 15, 16 this time.
Okay.
I just been in London a few years and I'm thinking that I didn't know what modeling was about, this and that. So when I gave my dad the piece of paper, my dad he didn't even say anything and I didn't think anything of it. I kind of knew my dad, obviously anything outside education was a complete failure to him. That's what he thinks. And then I helped a couple of friends during university. I helped them with like photo shoots here and there. They're like, hey, do you want to model my collection? This and that. And I did that and they posted it on Instagram. And then some of the agents asked them, said, hey, we really like this guy. We'd like to meet him. Could you connect us? So I had a few agents to go and see and I felt like they wouldn't, push me for jobs if I didn't, because at that time finishing my studies was the most important thing. So I felt connected with this other agent and I said, okay, I'll sign up. At that point, I was at a stage where I'm helping my dad pay my aunt's children, my cousins, to school fees because I could see my dad was struggling financially as well.
So you were modeling on a side?
On a side.
Yes,
yeah, so I started
exactly.
modeling
Still doing
on
your
the side,
studies, but helping your dad for your family back in Uganda.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was using part of my student loan at first. I used to work I started a part-time job. I remember I started a part-time job working from 5:30 to 9:30 after university. And that was so tiring. And then when this modeling thing came on, I was like, I can give it a go. And if it's going to ease the pressure a little bit on me and my dad trying to support my aunt back in Uganda, then great.
So new life for you.
New life.
The beginning of a new life with money. The
beginning of a new life. So I started doing it without telling my dad. So, and it would, my aunt would be like, oh, Dennis sent us school fees. And they'd be like, oh, you sent your aunt school fees already? I was like, yeah, I sent it that. And obviously this time you just think I'm just still, just earning my money from the supermarket I was working in, or I've got student loan, or I've saved something, but it was more of the modeling. But with mine, I'm so lucky that the modeling, as soon as I started it kicked off. So it wasn't like huge money, but for me, it was huge money. And for my aunt, it was even like a life-changing thing because now her children are not missing school. When her children needed school fees, they were ready. Like, auntie, I'll send you school fees. And all my cousins have finished schools, all three of them, all of my auntie's children, they all graduated. Two of them work, have jobs. One of them don't have a job yet. Is back within the community, helping me trying to rebuild the community now as well.
Now that you have, I'm interested now that you have completely access to a completely different life. I mean, with the luxury brands and everything. How do you cope, like from having this life very difficult with the war and atrocities and probably trauma, and now to a completely different life? Do you feel? How do you feel with these two extremes? I know you're building a gap. This is a foundation, and we'll talk about your foundation back in Uganda. But how do you feel now?
Sometimes I pinch myself. It's like, is this really happening? I really do pinch myself sometimes. But I've always known how far I've come. I'm always aware of that.
Yeah,
how
you're
far,
grounded.
How far I have come. Always, I know I'm very fortunate. I've been so lucky that I'm safe. I was able to be safe from the first time. My dad was able to get us help. To someone talking to us early on about the war, the safety, the this and that. When we came here, we got help. So I've always been grounded. I've always been so grounded.
And do you feel always connected to these people, like sometimes of
Yeah.
luxury? Yeah.
Yeah. I love meeting new people. Like when I travel a lot for work, and when I go to new cities, I'll be like, oh wow, what is it like? What's the culture? What's the language? I ask first thing, like, how do you say hello? And then you find me saying hello to everyone now, unnecessary. But I like embracing new culture, meeting new people.
Okay, so you approach it with curiosity.
Yeah, I always approach it with an open mind and curiosity. I'm always curious, always.
Do you have a way to stay balanced?
I would say just be true to yourself. Because if you're true to yourself, especially in this industry, if you're really true to yourself and know your purpose, no luxury or position would let you change that. Absolutely, you have to be true to yourself. And I know I have to do me. Otherwise, who else is going to do me? If I decided to do this person, be this person, bearing in mind, this person has had a different life path to mine. So if I just put my life path to one side and let me just follow your life path, then, I'm not staying true to myself, really. And that's how I see it. That's how I see life. Just be true to yourself.
So you're just coming back from Lumole.
Yeah.
And so since at the beginning you were helping your family, but now you're helping like an whole community.
Yeah.
You have hundreds of children going to school thanks to you. What did you see? Can you explain everything you put in place? And how was your trip to Lumule? What happened? What's your goal? Tell us everything.
Oh my God. My first trip to Lumule was a tough one, because it was one that my aunt wasn't feeling great. So I was like, let me go and see my aunt. So I went there to see my aunt. And then she's like, by the way, your mum is coming to see you as well. And I'm thinking, oh wow, it's been like over 22 years. I hadn't met my mum. I couldn't have even said, this is my mum if she walked past me. Maybe with the energy, this is what I think her energy, I would have known like this person is related to me, So I was excited to go there, and I was excited to go to Lumule, to go and meet my community that I left behind. I don't remember any one of them, but I was buzzing to go and see them. I remember landing in Entebbe, and I feel all this weird vibration, feeling like I'm home. This is
really
home.
Okay.
Yeah, I felt like this is home. And then I saw my aunt, and it was emotional. Obviously, last time I see my aunt, she was packing my suitcase to come to London, and I hadn't seen her since. So we got to Lumule about 6 p.m. And then I saw this lady sitting down, and I asked my aunt, I said, that has to be my mum. I'm sure that's my mum. There were a lot of people sitting outside waiting as well. But I pointed this lady, especially this lady, because I could just see my similarity and stuff on her from a distance. And she like got up, the car was still kind of rolling. I just jumped out.
Wow.
And we just cuddled each other. It was quite
emotional.
Yeah.
Wow.
And she's crying, and she's like, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm like, Mom, you don't have nothing to be sorry about. You gave me life, and your decision gave me a better life. And this is, so don't be sorry about it. We're really getting to know each other. We talk a lot every day. Good morning.
Oh, you talk to her every day.
Every day. Even like just before I came
really?
down. Yeah. So, and I'm like, Mom, I'm in Turkey. It's like, oh, what's Turkey like? She's like, one day I'll come with you to these things. I was like, yes, please do come. So I can't wait for the day for to even come and see this part of the world. At first, basically, after finishing my cousin's school fees, I told my aunt, I want to help the community now. I want to support the community. What can I do? What do they need? And he's like, well, help the school then. And I was like, okay, great. And I said, but Aunt, I'm more passionate in helping young women there because I know they have it a lot tougher. Yeah, maybe send these girls secondhand clothing and sanitary, because girls here don't have access to sanitary. Sanitary is very expensive there, so they miss school during their periods and stuff. So they miss a big chunk of education period for every month.
Yeah,
So I was like, okay, let's stop that. Let's see how if I can send as much sanitary as possible. So I basically would go evening to the supermarket with my trolley, be like, hey guys, can I buy these bunch? It's like, yeah, take them. We're gonna refill new ones. So I take them, I go and pay for it. So I would buy them in section like that, put them in barrels, ship them to Uganda. I wanted to do a bit more, like so much more. So I went to the schools and I spoke to the head teachers. I was like, what is the most challenging things here? And he's like, well, like you help us a lot. We can't express how grateful we are for what you've been sending to schools and stuff. But one thing maybe we could work on, we need help on, is to try to feed these kids something during school time. So, and I went the next day to spend the day in school. So I was going into classroom with the head teachers and see the condition these kids study in. At lunchtime, I saw that these kids are not eating anything. They were just standing beneath a tree and not eating anything at all.
no lunch.
No lunch, no food. So you got 5 to 15-year-old not eating anything. And then the head teacher said, this is our main challenge here, is we can't motivate these kids in the afternoon. Most of them disappear because they go home.
Too tired because they're
too
hungry.
tired.
Yeah. Okay.
And the one that do turn up in classroom, they'll be like, oh, I'm tired. I'm not feeling too well. I got a headache. So, and it's like, if we can do something to help that a little bit. And I was like, well, a lot of the communities are farmers. Surely they have food to spare for lunch. It's like, most of these farmers here prioritize selling their produce to pay for school fees, for uniforms, for medicine, for things like that. So most of their crops are sold once it's harvested, and they're only able to feed their children once a day, which is in the evening after school. I was like, well, it's something we can definitely work on. So they needed a kitchen. They need a kitchen
To make like a canteen
to make a canteen. Yeah, to make a canteen. And I was like, let's start by building a kitchen, and then I'll get a chef and some helpers to come and make basic breakfast and lunch, but at least they will eat something during school time. So I said, communicate with the community first and their parents and see how they feel about it. Everyone embraced it. So we would love that. We would even donate food as long as there's somewhere to cook it. The facilities to make this food, we will even donate food so the children can eat. And that's what's happening. We started construction. So we started building a school kitchen. We started it just after Christmas last year. Started building the school kitchen. It's up, and I believe it will be up and running by the 5th of June.
Well done.
Yeah, up and running by the 5th of June. Now they're doing finishing touches, rendering. The roof is up, the windows are up. So we're using this stove, this energy efficient stove thing. three of them. So we started off with that. And when I go end of the month, I go there too. So I would pay the cost of food for the next 6 months. And I would pay obviously the chef. But after that 6 months, these parents, what they've done is they've donated land to the school and they're growing crops for the school. They want the school to be self-sustainable.
Okay.
On this
That's
school
great.
meal
Okay,
program.
okay.
They want to be able to take it on their own and not relying on me helping with funding, sourcing food.
You're paying with everything with your salary, or you're raising food, or raising money, or?
To be honest, I put a GoFundMe page in November. I was quoted $24K to build this kitchen, but the price has gone up since then. But I've managed to raise 7,700 out of the 24, which was honestly, it goes a long way. Goes a long way. So I'm grateful for it. But yeah,
would the next step, most of it. Would the next step would be to have like to be more organized, like an NGO or?
Yes. The next step is to do that, because I want to rebuild the school because the classroom condition that these kids study in is really tough. The existing buildings that still have the roof on, they have bullet holes on the walls. So you got these kids studying in conditions like that.
Yeah.
And some of the building were burnt down during the war, completely destroyed, and they need putting down and rebuilding a new one. But it's just these kids studying in these classrooms is quite heartbreaking, because a lot of these kids now, they are children of former child soldiers.
Yes, that's what I wanted to tell you. Now that the war is over, that you've helped to rebuild the school, to ameliorate it, to improve it, to fight against their hunger, to feed them, to help them to be in good conditions, to help the girls to come back to school. You have like almost 800 children going to school, and you double the amount of girls. Now, this former child soldiers, yes, they're the age of being dads.
Yeah, their parents, their
probably
dads.
Completely
traumatized.
Traumatized.
Yeah.
The one like you, probably, who were almost always escaping, and the one who were abducted and who had to commit atrocities against their parents or against people. That how was trauma addressed?
The trauma was never addressed. So basically, and I've got one of my cousins, his name is Okwera. We used to play together, and he was abducted, and he was in the bush for 4 years. He did a lot of awful stuff. And he got shot in the right knee. So he walks with a limp now. But he's back, and some of my family, so this Okwera is my grandmother's sister's son.
Okay.
Yeah. So he was just a little bit older than me. So he's like a big brother.
Okay.
When we used to play together. But he's back in the community, and that side of my family don't really want him to be within the community anymore, because he drinks a lot. He has crazy mood swings. And they say he's lazy. And I tried to talk to him. I said, it's not lazy. And it's not any of that. It's just that he's experienced so much at such a young age that he really needs help. And even in my community in Lumule, there's lots of boys like that who their fathers, they have children. Some of their children come to this school in Lumule. I think doing something where they can get a bit of rehabilitation would be great, because the one I spoke to, they were like, the government, so when they were captured back by the government army, they were held in for like maybe 2-3 weeks, some to a month. But then you're given, I believe it was a mattress, a blanket, utensils like saucepans and cooking utensils, and I believe 250k Uganda shillings, which is it's just under £100. And this is what these guys were given. And it's like, okay, now you're going to start a new life without any help mentally.
Yeah.
So the community has loads of this. But so the main aim is to help rebuild the school. So these, the kids don't have to see that condition while they're studying.
Yeah, okay.
I know they'll still go home to broken homes, but while they're
at least
in school, let them have a good studying
peaceful
condition.
Moment, yeah.
Peaceful moment.
And a better future.
And a better future. The other thing is, once the school is finished, I hope to build a community center where bring the right people in to try to talk to communities, and not just Lumule, anyone in northern Uganda will be able to go to this community center and get help and learn life skill. Honestly, they need it. Like, there's no sense of like, they're not inspired. They're not inspired at all. You know, a lot of them are not educated, and their parents were not educated. Some parents there had never been into a classroom ever. By me doing this school, I think we're giving them incentive to take your child to school. They'll get lunch, they'll get breakfast, they'll get free books. Let them go and study. And this is what's happening. It's like, we've had so much enrollment in this school. It's like 803, and I was talking to the school principal. I said, "This is a lot, guys," because obviously we have to bear in mind like the feeding program as well that I'm going to take on for the next 6 months until they harvest their crops. So when we got such a high number of kids joining the school, which I'm not complaining, but it'll be a challenge, but I would like them to study in better condition than what they're doing right now.
We'll end this interview, Dennis, with the harvest of the day. It's the question I'm asking to everyone. What is the one thing that gives you hope?
Is the ability of others who are fighting for the same thing. You know, there's so many young people now who are interested, like Harvest community, they're interested to hear about my life story and my community in Uganda, you know, and that gives me hope that there's people that actually care about the condition other parts of the world are living in, you know, because I was telling someone last night, I said, you could comfortably live here and just don't worry about what's happening in other parts of the world, because it's never going to affect you here. It's never going to reach you here. So, you know, but the fact that you don't want, what is comfort anyway? You know, you don't want that. And you're interested to find out how that person is living over there and why they're living over there. And let's try and make change. How can we change that? Because everybody that I meet now is like, Dennis, how can we change this? How can we help? And that gives me a lot of comfort.
Wow.
So much.
Thank you so much, Dennis, for sharing your amazing story.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here in the podcast room and sharing your beautiful story.
My pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Harvest series. If you want to hear more, don't forget to click on the subscribe button and see you soon for our next episode.